I go this direction, nothing happens. It's completely locked up. I don't think there should be water in this portion. Place your bets. Well, here she is, my new to me 2006 GasGas 280 trials bike. So if you're not familiar with what a trials bike is they are basically designed to just do crazy stunts off-road. There's no seat at all. So you're supposed to be kind of just standing the whole time. Super soft suspension, incredibly light as well. I think this whole bike weighs like 180 pounds, something like that. So let me show you what's wrong with this one. So the main concern we're going to address today is this Kickstarter. So if I go this direction, nothing happens. It's completely locked up. But I know the engine's not locked up because if I just... Did you hear that? I can move the engine kind of reverse a little bit and it turns over and I can go back this way. So I can hear the piston moving up and down. So the engine itself is not locked up. It makes me think that there's just an issue with the kind of gear mechanism. I'm not really sure exactly what's behind inside of this clutch cover. So that's what we're going to do is pull that apart, see if we can figure out if it's just gear that's not meshed, if something's bent, what exactly is causing that. I don't see any oil in our sight glass right here. So I'd imagine somebody's probably already been in here once. Oh, I forgot to mention one other concern. After I had bought this thing and loaded it up in my truck, the previous owner walked up and said, "Oh, hey, here's this part. If you know how to weld aluminum, you can put that back on." I have absolutely no idea where this is from. I'm really hoping it's not something internal. I have not figured out any place on the frame or anywhere else on an engine mount, suspension, anything where this part came from. Why, in retrospect, I didn't ask him at the time, I don't know. But so we'll have to figure that out. Hopefully it's not something too terribly important. I did just notice the kickstart is not actually attached at all. There's supposed to be a bolt running through the center of that. So we'll have to replace that. Kind of another sign that somebody's been in here before us. So I did find a resource online of a guy who works on a lot of these bikes. I'll throw a link in the description because I got a lot of this information from his videos. But he shows that you can just pull this off, including these water pump bolts, and this whole thing comes off without having to drain the cooling system. I'm actually not even sure if there's coolant in that. Something we'll need to check later on. We're going to start with this. I don't think there should be water in this portion. When he pulled it off, the water stayed contained. So hopefully that's not water in the crankcase. Or I guess it would be in the clutch cover. This is a 2-stroke, so there isn't actually any real engine oil, but there is oil for the wet clutch. Okay, so there's definitely some water in here. So here's what we're looking at. A little bit of corrosion up here on the steels, you can see. Some gunk at the bottom of the crankcase. These little clutch fingers seem alright. Can't really tell anything about the kickstart mechanism just yet. So we're going to keep diving in here. Next I'm going to pull off this clutch. Start to separate all these friction discs because we're going to definitely have to clean all those up. I had to dig around a little bit because these are what turns out to be 7mm 12-point nuts. I only have one tool for that, and it's this tiny box end wrench. So I need to put on my list of tools to order maybe just a little metric 12-point socket set, because this is going to take about 3 to 5 business days for me to get off. Okay, last one. a weird, almost like anise type material. See? Okay, interesting. Try to keep everything in order. I've never messed with the clutch with these kinds of fingers before that are like removable like that. That's pretty cool. Now we're into our rusty steels and friction discs. Truth be told, these really don't look bad. They just have surface rust on them. I'll see how much a replacement clutch costs for this thing, but honestly, I think we could probably clean these up. There's a bolt in the center of this. Not very tight. I haven't been able to locate any kind of service manual for this, so I'm not going to know any of these like torque specs or anything. I have to figure that out later. Don't lose our little bolt. Okay, maybe it's gonna come out now. Okay. Fun fact, I definitely didn't need to take all those friction discs and stuff out, but we're going to want to clean them up anyway. So we'll just put the rest of the components. Okay, what are we looking at here? So we got a large gear, kind of like a cage. Decent amount of corrosion down there at the bottom. Is this going to come off now? Yeah. So that engages. The crank is going to be on this one. That tooth engages with this. There's probably, yeah, okay. So there's a little gear on the back of that. Another gear here, and then this is our Kickstarter mechanism. Should have a little spring back there. Okay, just like that. So I'm assuming, hold up. Can you see this area right here? It looks like broken aluminum. Well, that's where our piece came from. The question is going to be, how important is that? And is that a weld back together? Is that a potential kind of JB weld if it's not anything that's structural? I'll have to look into that, but let's keep diving into this mechanism for now. So this is what I figured out so far. One, this little spring mechanism right here is completely bent. This little tab is supposed to be coming straight out, and it actually engages with part of the clutch cover. So that's wrong. With this piece missing, so as you can see, it's supposed to go right there. So let's see if we can try and demonstrate this. I'll put this kickstart back on. I'll try to hold that piece in place. If I spin this, this should come out, engage with that other gear, and then go back. Oh, well, that's just going to come off. Look how mangled that is. So the idea there is that there's a spiral on this piece so that when this twists, it actually comes out, engages with this gear, and then once it hits the maximum amount of travel, springs back into place. But with this chunk missing, as this spins, it just comes out too far. So thinking through this a little bit more, having a piece of your crankcase be kind of an integral part of stopping this whole mechanism doesn't make any sense. That would be a poor design choice. So thinking through it a little bit more, I discovered right at the end of the shaft right here, there is a little notch. I don't know if you can see it, it goes all the way around. And what that is supposed to have is, I don't know if it would be called a snap ring or a circlip, what the proper term for it is. Not too dissimilar from these snap rings on here. It's basically a piece of metal that goes around there and it stops this whole mechanism from coming too far out this direction. So what I think has happened is maybe somebody got in here to replace this little plastic and a friction disc that wears out. They put it back together. They maybe forgot that clip. They went to kickstart it. It overextended and then broke that little tab off. And that's probably why this bike, you know, stopped being ridden, is because of that problem. Because if you look, if I kind of use my finger as a mock circlip is what I'm going to call it. I twist out, it's supposed to stop right there. Then that engages with our gear. We go the full range of motion at the end. It gets pressed back into place, goes back this direction. So right there, that's how it's supposed to work. And if there's a clip in place, that's exactly how it would work. So I don't think this is going to need to be fully welded back on. I still might do that. But for now, let me see if I can find a clip to put on this shaft and see what that does for us. So I found an external snap ring that I believe will work for us. It's a little bit loose, but there's really no way for it to come off of this shaft. So I trust it will be okay. I stuck our little piece down in here just temporarily, just kind of sitting there for now. Just want to test this operation. That should come out. Engage with that gear. And go back. Just like that. I can't go this direction anymore. Pulls out. Okay, so that's gonna work. Let's see here, what do I want to do next? I'm probably going to pull out my TIG welder and I'm just going to kind of zap these two together just to kind of hold this in place. Again, this should not be structural if this snap ring is in place because it can't be pushed out far enough. So I don't need this to be like super strong repair. I just want it to be in there and I don't want it to go anywhere. Well, welding it did not work, as you guys saw. I don't know if it's because this material is just super porous, really dirty, but it did not want to flow in very well. But thinking through it, I think that's actually probably for the best because this is broken all the way through this piece. This should have an amount of oil kind of slinging around in here. So if I just tack welded the bottom of this, odds are it would seep oil out of the back. So I'm going to utilize a method some of you guys might flame me for, but really if it's utilized well, much like Bondo in bodywork, if it's utilized well and not abused, it's actually not a bad technique, and that's going to be JB Weld. So what I'm going to do is put a thin layer of JB Weld all along this broken section. I'll be able to stick it in here. I'll have plenty of time to mess with it, get it perfectly aligned, nice, flat, everything in place. I will leave it overnight. And then that should be good to go. It's steel reinforced on aluminum. It should not be a problem because, like I said, this should not be, for lack of a better term, load bearing. There shouldn't be anything hitting this when this is operating normally. We just want to get this back in place and then sealed up. So I'm just kind of looking over everything, just trying to get familiar with how all of this works. This piece, when you activate the clutch lever, this presses out. That's what disengages our clutch. All that seems to be working well. Bearing seems to be in good shape. Now this is the back of our water pump. So on the other side, you can see these two hoses run up. One goes to the radiator, one goes into the head. That's our cooling system. This kind of circulates all of that around. But this little piece right here goes inside of this crank gear. But what I don't see is there any actual mechanical connection between those two. So what I mean by that is this little guy just spins around. I can spin it with my finger. I'm assuming there's an impeller on the other side. That's what actually makes our coolant flow. But how would that spin? This doesn't have any gear engagement and it's just smooth in here. So I'm looking at this gear and there are two kind of notches on the outside. On this little plunger, there is a through hole that goes through here as well, which tells me, in my best guess, there is supposed to be, I'll use the straw as a guide here, there's probably supposed to be some kind of metal pin that goes in here that engages with that gear, and that's what spins our water pump. That doesn't exist. It's not anywhere in the bottom of this crankcase. It didn't fall out when I took it apart, so I'm assuming whoever was in here last forgot that. I'm glad I noticed it. I can probably make something. It doesn't seem to be too terribly complicated, but if I didn't figure that out, our water pump wouldn't spin at all, and our engine would certainly overheat. And just like that, about 2 minutes later, we have our pin. So what I did is I just took an old Dole drill bit, measured out we needed to be about 900 thousandths long, marked it, put it in my vise with a pair of pliers, broke it. Drill bits are hardened steel, so they are very brittle, but they are very strong. So broke it off, ground the end to a nice round tip. Now it fits right in there. Also fits well on the water pump. Wait for it. There we go. Bam, just like that. So when we go to install this, we'll just make sure that these match up. We have it at like 9 and 3. We'll twist this and have it match up as well. And then hey, when this actually runs, we'll have a water pump that really works. It's the next morning. Let's give this a inspection. Oh yeah, that's super solid. There's also the added benefit of once the cover is on, the cover actually supports this whole outside edge. So there really isn't anywhere for this thing to push out when that cover is in place. I think the only way this thing could have broken in the past is somebody had to have messed with this kickstart lever with it set up like this and popped it off. Because really, like I said, if it's supported by that case, I don't really know how it could have broken off, but that all looks pretty good. I did go ahead and take a little bit of time and clean up the clutch as well. Got all the rust off, so everything looks nice there. Let's go ahead and, truth be told, I think I'm ready to put this all back together and kind of test the kickstart mechanism for good. Got the clutch installed and the side cover back on. I did go ahead and put some fluid in here. GasGas calls for like 375 milliliters of ATF. So that's what we have. Now, kickstart seems to be playing ball. I did go ahead and pull the spark plug out so that I could test it. What do you say we test, see if we have spark? So I believe on this, there is no real kill switch. I think it's just the like safety magnetic switch. I guess we'll see. Okay, we're gonna set it up on this side. I can't turn it over fast enough with just my hand. So I gotta get up here and try and kick it with my foot. Let's see what happens. Oh yeah. Nice, solid spark. Well, crap. I don't know the status of the fuel in here. Well, my throttle's not even hooked up, so let's just dribble a little bit of fuel down the cylinder, see if it pops. Okay, I put some fuel down the cylinder. We're ready to try. Kill switch is on. Place your bets. Now that we got some pops and bangs, what do you say we dive into this carburetor a little bit? I don't know what in the world this person was thinking with the fuel line that goes all the way across. I'm pretty sure it's just supposed to come out and go straight back there. So we'll need to get that out of here. Now what are the odds this petcock is off now? Grab something to catch this just in case. Okay, that is flowing. Also flowing. Off. Okay. Try to get all this fuel out of here. Might be able to just loosen those two hose clamps and just pull it out. Alright, there we go. Easy enough. Monstrous fuel line. She doesn't really look too bad. But we're this far, so we might as well pull the bowl off. Then I'll need to figure out how to reattach this throttle cable. Looks like it's on backwards. We got some stuff to address. Alright, we'll pull this top slide off first. I'm not sure what level of mechanic worked on this last, but you can see little signs. I mean, the fuel line's one, but you see this little notch right here? On this side, there's a little notch in the case where it seems to be very obvious that it should be clocked that way, but whoever did this didn't pay attention to that kind of stuff, which means they probably, there goes the spring, as I talk crap about the last person who did this, didn't pay attention to that kind of stuff. Let me grab that spring. So that just sits in here on top of the slide. Slide goes up and down nice and smooth. Have a little O-ring to seal on there. Seems to be pretty boilerplate. I mean, this thing is clean. I don't see any reason to ultrasonic clean this. A couple of different needle positions to choose from. I have no idea how this choke works. It doesn't, and truth be told, it doesn't seem to do anything. Well, let's pull it off and see. Okay. There we go. That's how it works. Well, I'm glad we took it apart. So pulled up and locked into that position is going to be choke on, and then down like that is choke off. Which this is more, what do they call this, enrichment? Can't remember. Basically just allows more fuel to flow in when it's enabled. Okay. Cool, cool, cool. We'll blow all this out. Let's pull this bowl off and see what we're looking at here. Okay, see how clean that is. There's our floats. And a little bit of gunk in there. A little slimy. Not too bad at all. Floats just sitting like that. You can see they have little pins they ride on. Overall, there's just like a little layer of slimy gunk. So we'll pull these jets out, blow them all out. I'll go ahead and pull the needle and seat out as well, just to make sure that's nice and clean. We'll throw this thing back together and see if it'll fire up for real. In theory, we should be ready to go. Now it's time to wheel this thing outside. I took a link out of the chain and moved it up a little bit so it's much better now. It's not flopping around. I also went ahead and topped up the coolant just to make sure that was good to go. Everything else looks fine. I want to run the bike for at least a couple of minutes to see if our thermal switch and fan relay and all that kind of stuff is working and that this radiator fan actually turns on, because I don't want to super overheat the bike unnecessarily. But obviously it's very smoky because it's two-stroke, so I'm going to pull it outside. While we're out there, I'm going to go ahead and pull the clutch, try to put it in gear, and just kind of see if it moves around. Might as well have some fun while we wait for it to heat up. Clutch seems to be working. If you can hear that squeak, that's my fan. This thing's super fun. So A couple of things I still need to figure out. Rear brake doesn't work at all. It looks like the master cylinder is super rusty. So I'm probably just gonna order a replacement master cylinder. Maybe there's a rebuild kit. I'll have to see what kind of parts are available. Definitely need to get new grips. These are just coming off in my hands, deteriorating. Other than that, this thing's ready to go out and do a proper ride. So what I'm gonna do is order those parts. I'm gonna end this video here. The next video you see on this thing will replace those, and then I have a spot in mind to go test this thing out and take it down some trails, and I'm gonna take y'all with me. So another successful Will It Run. This one wasn't too bad, a little bit different than what we normally do. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll see you on the next one.